And good Thursday morning, everybody. Meteorologist Greg Majeski back with you here in the North Georgia Majestic Weather Studios with your winter storm update. We've been talking about this for a few days. We're officially in a winter storm watch mode now, and I do expect winter storm warnings. I have to tell you, folks, before we get into this full update, it's going to be interesting. So even you folks that are not officially in the watch area, and you're going to see what I'm talking about in a second, need to pay attention because this one's going to be very interesting. It's a complex setup. It's not a straightforward snow event like we typically see with a low tracking on the Gulf. This is interactions between a cold core of polar air, we call it the polar vortex, and an inverted trough of low pressure is building off the southeast coast and bending back toward that polar vortex. And where they interact and where they set up is going to be key and critical on who's going to get the snow mounts and who's not. What's been interesting for me is that the models, it's one of those things as a forecaster, when you're looking at the data, you're going, you don't know if you really want to believe it or not. And you'll see what I'm talking about here when I get in this full update. Now, before we get going, if you're watching over on Facebook, make sure you give us a follow on the main Facebook page as we continue to try to grow our numbers to sufficient levels to bring on sponsors. And you guys over on YouTube, you guys are killing it. Keep making sure that you are a subscriber here on the channel. And again, make sure you hit that notification bell. Very important so you stay up on these latest updates. All right, now let's get into this update here. As you can kind of see, obviously we got all of North Georgia here, the Northeast Georgia area, I should say, not all North Georgia, here under this winter storm watch. This is the area I highlighted yesterday that I thought the watch would be issued for. That's what we're looking at. It was pretty straightforward, easy on that. A lot of the Carolinas are in this as well. But like I said, you guys over there that are not in the watch area, doesn't necessarily mean that you're off the hook on this, all right? Now, as we take a look at our current conditions, we're cold out there. Everybody's in the 20s and teens. One thing is for certain on this thing, it's all snow. There's several things we know for sure. One, it ain't an ice storm, okay? That's not going to happen. It's either snow or you get nothing at all. The atmosphere is going to be plenty cold. Two, we know when it's generally going to come. Friday night going into Saturday, we know that's the time window there. So we got those two boxes checked. What we don't know exactly is whom is going to be in the path of this thing and how much, because there's such big disparity in the models as far as snow amounts. So, and the other kind of variable in this, because we're dealing with a cold core, just remember the snow ratios on those cold cores tend to go up because the colder the air, the less moisture it can hold, and the type of snow that falls with this tends to make the snow ratios go up. So instead of being, what you would expect to be 10 inches of snow, maybe 12, 13 inches of snow. That's what they saw over the past weekend. But it looks like this will be, I think, fairly straightforward. Just looking at the temperatures, they're not overly bad, but still below freezing. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's get into the gist of everything here. I want to get into the model data here, and I want to break this all down for you guys. All right, so we're going to be looking first here at the NAM. Now, I'll say this one. This is our intermediate model. It's probably the least threatening of all of them. So I'll put that one up front here. So we're going to look at this one first. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this one here. Get down here. Here we go. All right, so here we go. This is the 6C NAM, the North American model here. It is coming on here. So what we're tracking here, watch that little timestamp there. You see a little bit of snow, little flurries coming in here to Friday evening. Comes on down, get a little bit of snow there across the east. Here's our little polar vortex back up here. There's our little low there. And you see that snow. It's not overly heavy. Pulls on out into the Carolinas, goes off the coast, and not a big deal. Really doesn't look all that impressive. All right. In fact, so that's the NAM model. All right. Now, here is the European model. This is the latest. This is the 6C run on the European. All right. So this one here is a lot more aggressive. Look at the darker snow colors in there through the Carolinas and pulls on up the coast. And yeah, that's snow going all the way down to Savannah even. All right, look where the cold core goes. It dumps all the way down here, and it brings in. That basically means you get these upper level winds that are bringing in that. All right. So this goes off the coast as that upper feature kind of swings in with the low and swings on off. All right, that's the European model. Canadian model. Look at the Canadian version. Okay. Look at it. Similar things here. There's the low coming down. One thing that's happened here is all these are trending back to the west. As I've been telling you guys, the further to the west it goes, the more likely it is that more of the state is covered. You notice that the European was covering more of the state, as is the Canadian model. Look at that more. That's why I said you guys that are not in the watch area, need to at least pay attention. So you see this goes on by. There's the snow going on by, and it goes on out the coast. So again, it's not a question of snows. I think we're pretty much set on that. It's a question of exactly where is this thing going to set up. All right. And here goes the GFS model, the 6C run on this that just came in here. You know, it's dropping the low. Again, everything's trended more to the west here as far as that upper level feature, but it's still favoring those eastern zones. The 0Z, it actually had it back in the Carolinas. It's come back to the east here a little bit, which is basically what the National Weather Service is kind of hitting on right in there, and it goes on out to sea. So again, all models showing all snows. We know we got a certain degree of it here across parts of North Georgia, okay? So now we're going to break down the snow totals here. We're going to look here first at the NAM. Let me switch over to the state mode. And you look at that, really not that big. The blues are where the heaviest stuff. It's not showing that much. Doesn't look all that impressive, okay? Now, the official forecast is for 2 inches, plus in the watch area, with some gusty winds up to 35 miles per hour. That's what the watch currently has. Now, here is the European model, 0Z. It is snowier. Like it shows 4.5 inches there in Gainesville, 7 inches over here. Look at all the pink there. Now, that's the 0Z run. I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to switch this over to the 6Z run. Pay attention to this, okay? Shift to the west and a lot heavier amounts. Now, I'm not buying this just yet. I think this may be overdone for a couple of reasons. Typically, when you get precipitation, you get a lot of virga that falls first because it takes a while for it to get down to the ground. So that's got to take into account. But that westward jog is the thing I'm more concerned. Not so much the snow amounts, but the westward jog there. Okay, but it's definitely, the European is the one that I tend to gravitate toward. That's my preferred model. Its accuracy is a little bit better, but that's snowier there. Look here at the Canadian model. The Canadian model also shows the west. These are more reasonable snow totals, I think, in here. Again, looking at this here, going in for tonight, very similar to what we're showing yesterday. So the Canadian's been pretty consistent there with that. And then finally, we look at the GFS model, and this is the 6Z run. I want to show you that compared to the 0Z run. So the 0Z run had it further east. The 6Z run brings it back to the west, just like the European was kind of shifting it back to the west. So, but still, these are predominantly where the current watches are, okay? Basically right through that corridor right there is where the current watches are. So, but again, like I said, all you guys here to the west, even back toward Metro Atlanta, are not out of the woods. You got to pay attention to this one because it could change. It's interesting that it's shifted back to the west. So the 12Z runs today are going to be very interesting. Of course, I'll be watching this closely and kind of getting there. We're not worried about power outages. I'm going to be very upfront about this, guys. Again, we're talking about snows. We're not talking about an ice storm here. So I'm not worried about widespread power outages or anything else like that. Not like we just had, where we had 100,000 plus. And I'm going to be frank with you, we got lucky. We really did. I mean, we got hit with that sleet instead of the freezing rain there at the end of that event. It could have been a whole lot worse. So we're very grateful on that. All right. Now, what I'm most concerned about is that it's been awfully cold. Ground temperatures are very cold. We're going to get this precipitation on here, and all the bridges, overpasses, and roads are going to turn to ice. And it's going to be extremely cold going into Saturday morning, down into the teens and everything else. So this stuff ain't going nowhere on Sunday. So when you get snowed in, wherever you're at, especially those eastern zones where the current watches are up, just plan that you're going to be in for the day. All right? And then it's going to be icy roads going into Monday. We do warm up next week. We get back in the 40s. We'll get this thing out of here again. But again, these are the zones to watch. What I'm going to be watching today as a meteorologist is I'm watching exactly where the polar vortex is dropping down, where the upper trough is setting up, and where the boundary is going to be setting up in here. Okay, so that shift there, there's a little shift to the west. I want to see what the 12Z runs do here and see if that's going to be a factor or not. All right, so we're going to watch that very religiously. So tune back in here. We'll do my full 3 o'clock regular weather update here at 3 o'clock. We'll do a regular forecast update there using this. So we'll use this model with the 7-day forecast in there. All right, so we'll break it all down for you then. We'll see what the 12Z runs have to say as far as the development of this storm. So just pay attention today for the changes. Tomorrow you can plant. You'll have all day to do what you, if you need anything else. I think a lot of folks got supplies left over from last weekend. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I don't think it'll be as big a run on the stores as that one was. What made that one a little bit scary was the fact that we hadn't had a serious ice storm in some 20 plus years. And what the models kept kicking out as far as levels of ice were very high. That's why I'm a little reluctant to bite off on the snow thing. But European does do decently with the snow totals. It did nail a lot of the snow totals on this last storm in the middle of the country. Those amounts were pretty much dead on there. So we'll watch this closely. Again, I think it's overdone because with 9 times out of 10, like I said, you get the precipitation to fall. The air's kind of dry. It takes a little while to work down to the surface, and then it gets going. So that is y'all's update. And thank you, Ginger Lady, for the donation. Yes, and we got the monetization up over on YouTube as well. So we got the Star Program on Facebook. We got the donations over there on YouTube, and we got the membership over there on YouTube as well. That we have on Facebook, we call it subscribers. For the paid servers over on YouTube, it's called the membership. So if you want to join the membership program there, that's where I'll put the exclusive normal the weather report dailies over there, and the behind the scenes stuff as we're trying to build out the channel here for the 24-hour network. All right. Anyway, that is y'all's update for today. Again, pay attention for my updates today throughout the day on Facebook, and we'll do another live here this afternoon, targeting around 3 o'clock. I got to double check. I'm still my last day of my weather conference. I think they're done by noon today, I believe. I shouldn't have any problems this afternoon, but if it does, I will post what time we'll be doing that live update. All right. All right. You guys take it easy. We got one more of these, another weekend for me to work. And then I got to work at Fox the following weekend. It's like I've had a weekend off since the end of December, since before Christmas. So just working myself to death. Oh, well, someone's got to do it, right? Anyway, that's it for now. You guys take it easy. Be good, stay safe, and we'll see you later this afternoon for your live update. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.